Well, I like to start from the beginning, much as I can remember. I first knew what love was from my parents.
You can't help it understanding. You know, as we grow and mature, we don't know what's going on behind us. Other way.
So this guy, Eric Rose, the architect.
I want to know, what can we do to keep these people from coming back? We got rid of them.
Here goes Miss America.
Come in closer. I got it. Hey, wait tomorrow. Wait, Chris.
I'd like to say that a free ollie is the best ollie.
$17 a week. And the good Lord bless us to live.
It is in my grandmother's memory that I dedicate this videotape today. For the sake of posterity, it seems appropriate that we trace the genealogy and the roots of this family which is so deeply rooted in God. My grandmother's parents were Henry Anthony Jolliot, who was born in Mississippi in 1879, and Sarah Anderson Jolliot, a native of New Orleans, born in 1882. On a bright Sunday morning, April 7, 1903, they gave birth to my grandmother, Aurelia Mary Jane Jolliot. My grandfather's parents were Moses Brown Sr., born in 1885, and Elizabeth Stanton Brown, born on April 10, 1886. She died December 24, 1951, a year before her namesake and my aunt, Elizabeth Brown Terry, was born. In 1906, Moses and Elizabeth Brown gave birth to my grandfather, Moses Brown Jr.
My whole family came from a family of love. My mother was the ultimate love giver, and so was my father. They loved each other unconditionally. They stayed with each other. You couldn't play one against the other. They were together. And God was first and foremost in our family. They taught me and our 6 or 7 of my siblings, and they told me the same thing. They learned who God was through our parents. And I found out as I got older, that was the sustaining thing in their life, God. God always first.
I met your grandmother the first time I saw her. I went to your Uncle George's house.
Daddy said at one time he worked in a sugar refinery. I think that's where he met Mama's brother, Uncle George, and then later met Mama at a dance.
She got to me, she looked at me, she said, Mr. Brown, you look handsome. I said, you don't look so bad yourself. It's like that. The lady kissed me on my cheek. I said to myself, what is this?
He said he could hardly go to work and look at Uncle George because all he could see was Mama's face.
I told George, I said, man, this thing is getting to be serious. He said, what's the matter? I said, your sister, man, look like I'm falling in love. And he said, not you. He said, you know, I used to clown all that. I could do now.
He was quite popular, but after he met Mama, he didn't care anything about those other girls.
See, I couldn't stay away from her. I tried for a house when I get off of work. And the situation began to get worse and worse and worse. So, I don't know, I got me some Marduk papers and married her. And that's the gist of that. She was one of the nicest person that a person can count on, a person can talk with. She wasn't educated, nor was I. But you think that she was. And she could hold a conversation with anybody. So could I. I still can do it.
Both she and my daddy were beautiful Christian people. Christian parents taught us to love the Lord. I saw my daddy reading his Bible every day.
Mama was a deaconess.
She teach Sunday school?
She used to teach Sunday school. I used to teach Sunday school too when I could. And now you talk about a person knowing how to pray. You never heard of it.
When Mama was sick before she died, She was in the hospital bed, and I said, Mama, pray for me. So I pulled her to the side with her drawer sheet and got in the bed, and she put her arm around me, and when she finished praying, she just tapped me.
The biggest thing, I think she told me, I think she told us all, love is not selfish. Jesus is love. It breaks down barriers, takes the hardest of heart, and make them humble. Love does that thing.
One time I said, Mama, you had all these children. My goodness. I said, what Daddy said when you get pregnant? He said, the Lord will provide.
She told me when the children started, before they started high school, my children are going to college. I said, yeah. I said, what are we going to use for money? You see. I started working on the river day and night.
Daddy never stopped working. Daddy caught a bus to go work on the river in the whole of a ship, called him longshoreman. He'd always come home with a little package under his arm, some food or something from work the day he worked. You had to stand outside, wait for his name to be called to even go to work once he got there. And my daddy worked hard. And so did my mother.
Well, Mama was the help. She did day's work.
My daddy, he was a tired man when he came home.
Daddy'd come home from work in the evening. I think back, he was just so tired. We went on a horsey ride, and he'd get down there on the floor, and we'd ride his back. Us girls anyway, not the boys so much. And he'd sit in the evening. He had a long pompadour, and he used to let us comb it and braid it. Really, all you needed to do when you were young was sit on his lap and rub his head. What you want, baby? But I never wanted anything. Tried not to put a burden on him. Just wanted what I had, their love.
We were taught the values. It's not how much you got. What's important that you have. God, family.
Man, we were so poor, I only had one pair of pants. Nothing looked like a suit. And she had one dress. That's the fact. But none of the kids were without clothes, they weren't hungry. We always had a house to live in.
Believe me, they had it tough. Not only was my father and mother raising 7 of us, but his mother and his father also lived with us.
It was 1932. He had lost his job, and it came to stay temporarily, and they stayed until it passed.
Well, during the Depression, it was catastrophic. But, we been out pretty good. We lived off of shortcake and syrup. Yeah, as I said before, nobody complained.
And we lived in a 2-bedroom house that you open the front door, the back door, the flies come in the front, go out the back door. But some kind of way, we made it. We were never hungry. We didn't have the best of clothes, but we had love.
I vaguely remember kindergarten and going to school, the early years. We had colored water fountain and a white water fountain and a colored bathroom, white bathroom. Went to segregated schools, which were the best schools, it turned out, later on, because you had people who cared about you, who wanted you to succeed. We were always told we had to do better, twice as much and better than the white kids if we wanted to succeed. 4th grade, when World War II started, I remember the teacher coming to class crying and saying we were at war.
Everybody had to do something. My grandmother took in washing and ironing. My grandfather had this little truck. He was hauling different stuff around. My grandmother cooked, cleaned with my mother, helped my mother around the house, and raised us.
Poor, but happy. Happy, happy, happy. I used to think, boy, if we get rid of this wood stove, we're going to be rich. And where Mama worked, if the people, they used to get either $15 or $20 for an old appliance. But rather than turn them into Sears, they sold them to Mama. So we got the wood stove, still poor, got the refrigerator, still the ice box, still poor. So I learned early, things don't make you happy. So, and like Paul, I've learned to be content wherever I am, in whatever situation I'm in.
Well, we were so poor, we didn't even know we were poor.
We survived. My folks took advantage of what was out there for us so that we would be halfway healthy. And we ate heavily starched meals. Nobody ever went hungry. I don't remember paying attention, say, so that my parents or my grandparents did without. All I know, there was always food for somebody to eat that was there and anybody else who stopped by.
One day I got a pair of skates, and after I got through skating, I found a way to take that dog off, made a skate mobile. And the biggest Christmas gift I ever got was Daddy bought me a secondhand bicycle.
We had Coke bottle dolls, rope, plug up the bottle top and wet it, roll it up and comb it and stuff like that.
She never told me once that she was sorry that she married me.
Yeah.
Not once.
That's incredible.
And she never would complain in regards to what condition that we would be in. She would never complain about it. She always tried to help me the best she could. I tried to help her the best I could.
After they put my mom and dad out from 1634, the owner, not because they didn't pay the rent on time, he just wanted a house. So I think it was my father who knew a couple named Buster and Wilhelmina. He moved us into that little shack right by the railroad track. We couldn't all stay there. Rosanna was married. She's the oldest girl. In fact, she's after Stanley. And Aunt Jew moved in with her. My godmother, Juliet, decided to take Aunt Gwenny, take her to Kankakee, Illinois. And I went to New York with my brother Alfred. He was something different. First of all, he got my father to sign for him to join the Navy, and that was the beginning of his travels. He was in the Navy, and Alfred always said after years, after he left home, he'd come back. And he knew the Bible backwards and forward. But he claimed he was an atheist. But his buddy, as I found out later on living in New York with him, his buddy told me they were on the same ship during World War II when the ship got torpedoed. This atheist so-called brother of mine, like everybody else, after that torpedo hit the ship, they dropped to their knees and start praying to God, Lord have mercy. Then there was Stanley. He was a great man.
I don't want to forget that while we're enjoying ourselves on Christmas, that we need to remember the name of the person that we honor today, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Our church, when Stanley was ready to go to college, was their first scholarships. And for Stanley,
he was taken out of college to be drafted into the Army during the Korean conflict. He came back, and for a long period of time, he wouldn't speak about it. Years later, he told me, he says, do whatever you want to do, but don't volunteer for nothing. And Stanley put the down payment on my mom and dad's house, which was 2120 Law Street. We grew up 1634 St. Anthony, and I know for a fact everyone in our family was family oriented. Then there was Rosanna, my older sister. She was like a rock. She was big buffalo with her mouth, but her heart was as tender as mother's love. Mom and Daddy always says that from the beginning. The oldest takes care of the youngest, the one underneath them. And so Alfred had Stanley. Stanley had Rosanna. Rosanna had Jewel. Jewel had grandmother Gwenny. Gwenny had me, and I had Boo.
Rosanna was a good big sister, I think. And we all babied Elizabeth, even though that was Harold's baby, but I think we all babied her.
And then there was your Aunt Jewel. She was a beautiful person, just like Rosanna.
I was about 13 when I accepted the Lord as my personal Savior, asked Him into my heart to save me. And didn't really grow by choice, I guess, as it turns out, as I should have. And then I met a lady, even though I had good examples of parents and all, I met a lady in Dayton who really exemplified the Lord, and their home was open to anybody who needed, pick up somebody on the street and bring them in their home. And just other things that she and her husband did, and I thought, I want that.
She went to college at Dillard, like Stanley. Her husband, Uncle Duffy, he lived in the same block. In fact, on the same side of the street. He would pass the house and Jewel would tell Annie and everybody, listen, we'll marry that man.
Duffy had to quit school when he was 16 because he was nearsighted. And he didn't tell his mother that he needed eyeglasses. He couldn't see, so he quit school to go to work to buy eyeglasses. But anyway, he'd pass my house, going to the grocery every morning to buy whatever it was. And I was in the window watching. And when he came home from work, he knew this. I was down at my friend's house watching him when he came back. And he was always so neat. His clothes always ironed, his shoes always shined. Just very neat. Very, got my heart.
And she married Duffy, and they had a fantastic marriage.
I've been blessed, just blessed. I had a great husband. We have wonderful children, loving, giving parents who would have given their lives for us, and siblings. Just wonderful.
Yeah, Aunt Gwenny was just your Aunt Gwenny. She was all heart. Total giver.
Gwendolyn was my baby. We both took piano lessons, and it was 25 cents a lesson. And Gwendolyn practiced, because Mama, we had a little piano. Gwendolyn practiced, and I didn't. And the teacher told me don't come anymore, because my parents worked too hard for their money. Gwendolyn used to make up songs. She still made up songs, before she passed, before the hurricane anyway.
I remember telling her when we little, she was kind of shy about her freckles. And I used to hug her and I used to say, I'm gonna kiss every one of them beautiful freckles. I used to always tell her how beautiful she was. And she was. Not just from the physical end, but what's inside that brings the beauty out.
I ran my mouth a lot out in the street, and Gwendolyn used to have to come out and, kind of fight for me because I ran.
We used to sit up late at night, cut up potatoes and fry them, and put them on mayonnaise and bread. And those were, the good innocent times in my life.
I told Gwendolyn, there's no Santa Claus, I saw the presents, and until she died, she still was upset that I ruined Christmas for her.
But she was more like my mother than anybody. I couldn't pass her unless she hugged me. And so, it sounds, silly, but, and believe it or not, you get used to that. You get used to those hugs. And if you don't get those hugs, you want to know why. But I never had to wonder why. I always got the hugs.
Gwendolyn was 2 years after me, so we graduated at the same time. The Dillard program for nursing was 4.5 years, year-round. And used to wonder how in the world when Mom and Daddy going to get $500. every semester. But they did, the Lord provided it, because they wanted us to do better, or to have things better than they did. And Gwendolyn started teaching and bought Daddy a car with her money, and Harold refused to go. He was tired of school at that time.
I had been to New York with my oldest brother, Alfred, and when I went to live with him, it was a whole new world, coming from a little place like New Orleans, Louisiana. And he took me everywhere. He took me up and down the East Coast, took me to Yankee Stadium, Polo Grounds, Evans Field, Brooklyn. He just showed me everything. But he exposed me to all kinds of things and then told me, a man is always supposed to have a sharkskin suit on, Stacey Adams on his feet, nothing less than a couple of $100 in his pocket. I'm 13. What is this man talking about? And by the time I came back home, after Mama threatened him, and I came home with that sharkskin suit on, a couple of them really I had, and $500 in my pocket. Told my daddy I was a man. I even brought a woman to the house one day. I got drunk. It was so crazy. And then I used to beg your grandmother, Gwenny, and Jewel, to let me in that little side on the left side where the kitchen was on Law Street.
I tried not to do it too often because I think he needed to conform. That boy was so good looking. He had and still has heavy eyebrows. He said he used to charge the girls a nickel to rub his eyebrows and his eyebrows.
I really gave my father a very, very hard time by the things I'd done. And I knew it was a challenge for him. And Mama used to always say, he's got God in him. He'll be all right. I was a good student. Graduated from high school and top of my class, but I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get out there in the jungle. And then I got a letter from Uncle Sam. Greetings, we want you. So I was drafted in the service.
Harold came here in the early 60s in the service, met Gloria, came back and married her, and stayed here almost 20 years, never thinking anybody else would come. And then the Lord gave Duffy a job, and we came. And 6 years later, Joanne and Stanley came and stayed here 10, 12 years or so. They got saved here at my church. The children were saved and baptized at my church.
When I came back, I married Gloria in April 28, 1962. And they had Jeffrey. I wanted to adopt him. And his father said, well, I may never have another son. So I said, well, you can come see him anytime you want to. You get no problems from me. The guy never showed up, ever. So after Steve was born, Jeff said, hey, Daddy, how's everybody in the house named Brown and I'm Harris? So his mother and I had to go through that with him. But he said, Dad, I understand paternal things since your mom explained to him, but you my daddy. One day when he was 13, he came home, and I think this was probably the happiest day of my life. He came to me and his mother and he said, Dad, Mom, I found a way I can get a legal name change at the age of 13. I am a Brown. Then when Kevin was born, well, before that happened, I'm in a room with her. And during that time, they had to take you out of the room to a delivery room, the mother. All of a sudden, her doctor was Dr. Reagan, who was examining her, and he said, we gotta go. And he pulled the plug on her and they started pushing her to the operating room. It would seem like forever. A doctor came out. Harold, he says, it was touch and go in there. We like to lost them both. So yeah, they had to perform an emergency cesarean, and they took care of him. I always look at him as my little blessed child. Music was part of our life. Aunt Gwenny could pound on that piano and organ. They'd sing all the time. It was church. My mother was in a choir. She had a beautiful voice. My dad sang in a choir for a while. But the voice really came from Boo. That girl, Lord have mercy, she could sing. She could make you cry. Remember when my mom couldn't take care of herself? There was no such thing back in those days as a nursing home. So Boo, I think, at the time was married to Edward, Preacher Edward. She cared for Mama. Oh, she just fussed over some of it's my little baby, you know. Sing to her. Oh God, Mama's eyes would just light up a Christmas tree when Boo opened her mouth to sing. And they had church all the time. They had their devotions and so forth, so on. But Boo could tear the church down with her singing.
After we were all grown, Daddy said Mama told her, I was not there at the time, that she needed some foster children to take care of because she didn't have any babies to take care of.
Daddy said, look here, little red woman. I don't have no hair on my head now. You talking about taking in some kids? And she did.
Daddy was glad to have peace and quiet in the house. And I said, what you do, Dad? He said, we had foster children. Whatever your mom wanted, that's what I gave her, whatever she wanted.
And they would come back to see her as they got older when they left.
But she loved children, and then especially when Brian and Stanley came along and she had a chance to babysit them, and she just loved them babies to death.
She was a remarkable woman. So was my father, as a man.
You never heard us pat ourselves on the back for what we've done for our kids. Now, what we done, we did what we had to do. It's our job. If you're married and you become a parent, make sure that child respects you. Now, you're going to have to respect yourself first. Another thing is character, class. Those three things that you should have. Character, class, and respect. We were two poor people, but we had those things I mentioned. And the people respected us. There's all kind of ways of doing things. And make sure you do the right thing.
Daddy was 12 years old, and he refused to wash dishes. And my grandmother told my papa, and my papa told him from that day on he wasn't going back to school. He had to go get a job. He was an only child. And they did that to him. And I never did find out from Mama why she didn't at least graduate from 8th grade. But when I was in about 6th grade, she went back to night school at Jones, where Gwendolyn taught, and we went as children, and got her 8th grade diploma.
My mother is a saint. And my father's right there with her. I had to do something years later. Told Gloria, I said, I gotta take a little ride to New Orleans. She said, Mom, Dad, all right, everybody all right? I said, everybody's all right. But I need to see my father. But I remember pulling in front, 2120 Law Street. Daddy was sitting on the porch with his little U-shirt on, and when I got out, he jumped up and he said, Aurelia, that boy is home. Just like that. Mama came running out. So I went up the steps and boy, we started hugging. And Mama said, you hungry? I'm going to fix you something. So I was sitting out on the porch with my father. And I said, Daddy, I said, it's funny how when two people know each other, like my father and I knew each other. I'm the child, he's always will be my father. And I said, Daddy, I just come here to tell you thank you and ask for your forgiveness. He knew what I was going to say before I said. He said, that's all right, Harold. I understand. I said, maybe, Daddy, but I got to say it. And I used to run around there talking about I'm a man, blah, blah, you know, young age. And he told me something that stayed with me always. A man is not a man because of his age, as the law says in society. A man is a man because of responsibilities, first to God and to himself. I didn't want to pass before I said I'm sorry to my father, and I understood what he did for me and what he always tried and wanted for me. I didn't want him to leave. Not hearing me say that. I didn't want to go. And he's here, and he's still worried about that boy.
People have told me repeatedly what a good job I've done with my children. And the good Lord blessed me to accomplish those things. It wasn't that we did it, but the good Lord gave me strength to stand up.
This is where, in the family I was born with, this is what we're all about, love. But the thing that I love the most is how close we always were to the end, and how close young Jules are now.
I'm the fourth child of 7. I had 2 older brothers and a sister, and 2 younger sisters and a brother. And it's just Harold and our youngest boy and the middle child that the Lord has allowed to stay here.
It goes without saying that we all have our moments. When I talk about my mother, my father, my grandparents, and my siblings, I miss them so much. But then I have her to hug. Console each other. We have each other. And Jewel is precious. Precious.
And I've been blessed. And as a family, we've been blessed. Nobody's been to jail. Some of the younger ones might have done stuff that we older ones, generations didn't do. But still, the Lord has just continued to bless. And I look at our family as compared to my other family, with parents that pray for you and then parents that don't.
You guys have a total rich heritage that you could look back on.
Plain James, your interviewer, you've just witnessed scenes of my grandfather, whom we all love, talking about people such as my grandmother and the struggles and the joys that they've had raising their family. The kind of selfless sacrifice which he and my grandmother went through so that beneficiaries of their sacrifice like me could do the things that this family has been able to do. One thing that was clear from his discussion was that God was on the throne of their marriage, and he made a decision. But we also have to realize that it takes the will of the person to do right or wrong, and he chose to do right. He chose to work for us so we could have better things. My question to posterity and to children after will be, what will you do for your family?